Hello, friends. I hope you're all doing well. This is an introduction to BEGC 104, that is British Poetry and Drama from 14th to the 17th century. My name is Anish Mundra, and I will be your teacher for this course. I will be guiding you through the course. And today I have brought to you an introduction and overview of the course, where I will be telling you about what we are going to learn in this course. Uh, I am going to tell you about the authors, the major authors, their major works, and along with it, I'm also going to tell you why it is important to know more about the 14th till the 17th century British poetry and drama. Right. So, before we begin with the texts that are there in this course, before that, let's just talk more about this course as a beginning for or as an introduction to your British literature course, wherein we begin with the 14th till 17th century. And in the upcoming semesters, you will be dealing with the centuries post the 17th century, and you'll be talking about more uh, literatures coming later in British uh, countries, right? So, here, when we are talking about the 14th to 17th century, it is important to note that there is a gradual shift in the paradigm of Britain. There is a gradual shift in the social and religious landscapes in Britain, which makes it important to understand the 14th till 17th century of Britain. We cannot read literature without understanding the political and sociological landscapes of any region. So it is very important to know more about the 14th till 17th century. Excuse me. Now, as I give you more details into this, I would like you to relate everything that I teach with something that you personally relate to. I will always like you to take examples that are closer to you so that it helps you understand it better. Because you have to understand that literature, we are trying to look at British literature, but we are only doing it to understand ourselves better. We are only doing it to understand the language that we probably speak better, to understand what human condition was like in the 14th to 17th century in a country far off, in a country that later on did colonize us, right? So when we look at the 14th to 17th century, there is a sentiment of humanism that is coming in. Now, you would ask, what is humanism exactly? And I'll tell you, I'll define you. So, here, before the 14th century, in Britain, the major driving force for people and for every other activity was religion. There was a god sitting on the top and guiding every other action. Every morally correct or wrong thing was judged by religion. Take, for example, if you have to take it in the Indian context, take any of the religious texts, be it the Gita, be it the Quran, be it the Bible, or any of the other religious texts that guides what is right to do and what is wrong to do. Everything in the society was guided by such religious forces. But it is only in the 14th century, in the coming of Chaucer, when we see a gradual shift in this. The so called early modern society, a society that was static, was starting to become more and more dynamic. Human beings, as characters, previously were mainly acting as symbols, as allegories for a godly message. But it is only in the time of Chaucer that you will see that human beings are not mere symbols, but they are individuals. They have their own will, they express their own problems. They use irony, they use satire to critique, let's say, or mock, if not critique, but mock little norms of the society. And this is where we see the beginning of a humanist trend from a religious trend. A position where religion used to sit on the pedestal and guide every other action. Slowly, we see the human starting to sit in the pedestal, and it is through the human, or from the point of view of the human, that every other action in the society is looked at. Right. So this is why it becomes important to look at the 14th to 17th century literature, so to say. And I'll be talking more about it as I complete this when I'll sum up the introduction. Right now, let's move on to the next slide and let's look what is there in the course. Right. Okay. So this is the first slide. The course has been divided into four blocks for your better understanding, to have a definite course, to have a definite pattern to the course. Block one deals with the first two writers, Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer is also understood to be the father of English literature. And then we have Edmund Spenser, who is again uh, one of the stalwarts of British literature, coming after Chaucer, around 100 to 150 years after Chaucer, actually. We see Chaucer's lives and works, and then we go into the Canterbury Tales, the famous Canterbury Tales, and we look into the Wife of Bath's prologue. Then we go into Spencer, know about his life and works, and then something that Spencer was very famous for, that is his sonnets. We deal with the given sonnets here. Then we go into Shakespeare. I am sure you know many things about Shakespeare. Most of you would have also read probably a play or two written by Shakespeare. We are going to look at Shakespeare, his life and his works, and then we are also going to look at his sonnets. The play we are going to deal with later in block four. In block two, we are going to continue with John Donne, his life and works. John Donne is famous, or at this time in his era, he was rather infamous for his metaphysical poetry, which was very different from the poetry that was being written in that era. We are going to look into The Sun Rising and Death Be Not Proud by John Donne. And then we are going to move into block three and four, which are two major plays by two major writers of Britain. Right. So here, first, we are going into Dr. Faustus, which is the famous play by Christopher Marlowe, who was another contemporary of Shakespeare. Many people also believed that Christopher Marlowe could have been a bigger figure in British literature if his death did not happen so early in his life. Right. So, Christopher Marlowe, we are again going to look at his life and works. We are going to read closely Dr. Faustus. And after that, in block four, we are going to look into Shakespeare's Macbeth. Right. So, as I've mentioned here, first we are going to have an introduction into Macbeth, then we are going to read the whole play, and finally, we are also going to deal with critical responses. Now, all of this is going to help you with writing your answers. I'm also going to put into a few questions here and there, and only if you just try to understand what I'm trying to speak about, I believe you will be greatly benefited, not just in answering your questions, but if you want to pursue literature anywhere further after this, I believe, or at least I would try to uh, ignite in you a spark for literature, at least. Right. So let's move into the final slide. Here, a few important writers. We have Geoffrey Chaucer. I've mentioned this before. You can just look into it. And I'm just going to sum the introduction up for you, and a little bit about the course to you, so that you have an idea coming into the course and knowing what the course is going to be like. So, when I talk about the course, I can say that. there is a shift in the paradigms, right? So we are moving from a religion, a God-centric world, to a human-centric world, to a humanist world. And we are slowly moving into modernization, where rational thought, practical thought is coming along slowly. After Geoffrey Chaucer, whose characters in them we see humanist tendencies, who have their actual problems and not just mere symbols, in case as it was in the religious plays or poetry before written before. Slowly, as we move into Edmund Spencer, we see his attachment with nature and how he sees human beings along with nature. And then we move into playwrights like Christopher Marlowe, William Shakespeare, who are dealing with even complex human conditions, who are looking into the human condition, who are trying to raise inquiries into the human condition and questioning power and questioning the human fallacies, the human tendency to look for power, wherein in Dr. Faustus, you see a person who is ready to sell his soul to get more power. Similarly, Macbeth, again, who is probably ready to sell his soul in a way to kill people in return for power. But we again see how this power is troubling the human. As we move into John Donne, we see how his metaphysical poetry not just questions the humans, but the metaphysics. As T.S. Eliot says later on, that Donne questions the metaphysics. So he's trying to go into the human condition even further when he's trying to look into the metaphysical world, the sun, the moon, the stars, in contrast or in comparison with the humans. So, this is why it is important to know more about this course to start to see how we come into the later half, where we see technology, where we see industrialization, where we see the agricultural revolution, and everything is seen from the perspective of the human, not from the perspective of God. So, this uh, can also be named as the coming of age or the evolving of humanism into British literature. I hope I'll be able to help you out through the course. Thank you for today.